The neural interface screamed warnings as Commander Lirelei Voss watched her life's work crumble in real time. The massive holographic display showed the Terran defense grid, humanity's crown jewel of protection, flickering like a dying star. Each node that winked out represented months of her engineering genius, years of sleepless nights, and the trust of 8 billion souls. "You magnificent bastard," she whispered, her cybernetic eye tracing the elegant malware signature carved through her code like a scalpel through silk. Only one mind in the galaxy could have orchestrated this, Kethmer Velith, the Quillian tech savant, who had once been her research partner, her intellectual equal, and she'd thought her friend. The irony wasn't lost on her. She'd met Kethmer 3 years ago during the Intergalactic Collaborative Research Initiative, a naive human belief that shared knowledge would unite the species. His people, the Quillians, possessed natural quantum processing abilities that made their minds living computers. Where humans built crude machines to think, Quillians thought like machines, precise, logical. emotionless. Or so she'd believed. Their partnership had been legendary. Lirelei's intuitive leaps paired with Kethmer's computational perfection had birthed technologies that redefined what was possible. The defense grid was their masterpiece, a network of quantum sensors and automated defenses that could detect and neutralize threats across light. It was supposed to be humanity's insurance policy against the darker corners of the galaxy. Now it lay in ruins, and she knew exactly why. The Galactic Council's vote had been unanimous. Humanity was too dangerous, too unpredictable, too emotional, to be trusted with advanced defensive technology. The defense grid had to be dismantled, they declared, for the safety of all civilized species. When Earth's representatives had refused, citing sovereignty and self-determination, the Council had imposed sanctions, trade embargoes, diplomatic isolation, the slow strangulation of humanity's place among the stars. But Kethmer had offered a different solution. A private message, encrypted beyond even Council detection. "Give me administrative access to the grid. I can modify it to appear non-threatening, while maintaining full functionality. Trust me, Lirelei, I would never harm your species." She'd trusted him. That was her first mistake. Her second mistake was underestimating how thoroughly he'd studied her, not just her code, but her mind. Every conversation they'd shared, every late-night debugging session, every moment of professional intimacy had been data to him. He'd learned her patterns, her shortcuts, her blind spots. When he struck, it was with surgical precision, using her own elegant solutions against her. The defense grid wasn't just down, it was systematically corrupted. Its quantum entanglement protocols reversed, its sensor networks reporting false positives that would take years to untangle. Worse, the corruption bore her digital signature, making it appear as though she'd sabotaged her own creation. "Ma'am," her aide's voice cracked through the bridge's tension. "Priority transmission from the Quillian embassy." Lirelei's flesh hand clenched as Kethmer's image materialized, tall, crystalline features reflecting light like carved gemstone. His forearms moving in the subtle gestures that passed for emotion among his kind. But she could read him now, see the microscopic tells that had once seemed like mere physiological quirks. Lirelei, his translated voice carried synthetic warmth. "I am sorry it came to this. Your species' aggression left me no choice. The grid's destruction will teach humanity humility. Perhaps now you will accept your proper place in the galactic community." "My proper place?" She laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "You think you've broken me, Kethmer? You think this ends with humanity crawling back to beg forgiveness?" His crystalline head tilted curiosity in Quellian body language. "The grid was your life's work. Your career is finished. Your species is defenseless. What else could you possibly?" She cut the transmission with a gesture, her cybernetic eye already interfacing with her personal quantum core. Around her, The bridge crew watched with the desperate hope of drowning sailors glimpsing distant shore. "Commander," her aide whispered. Lirelay smiled, and for the first time in 72 hours, it reached her eyes. "Contact Admiral Rex. Tell him I'm accepting his offer." She paused, her fingers dancing across holographic interfaces only she could see. "And prep the fabrication bays. We're going to need them." "For what, ma'am?" Her smile turned predatory. "To rebuild a god." 6 months after the grid's destruction, Lirelay stood in the depths of Luna Station's restricted fabrication complex, watching her resurrection take shape. The chamber hummed with barely contained energy as molecular assemblers worked with atomic precision, crafting something that had never existed before, fusion of human intuition and machine perfection. "Status report," she commanded, her voice echoing off the reinforced walls. "Cranial architecture is complete," reported Dr. Nix Talamond, her lead neuroengineer. "The quantum substrate is stable, and the synaptic pathways are forming according to your specifications." But Lirelay Nix hesitated, her dark eyes reflecting the chamber's blue glow. "Are you certain about this? What you're creating, it's not just artificial intelligence. It's something else entirely." Lirelay nodded, her cybernetic eye interfacing directly with the construction matrix. She could see it growing, a humanoid form suspended in the fabrication field, its body a seamless blend of biological neurons and quantum processors, not merely synthetic, but genuinely alive in ways that transcended the binary distinction between organic and artificial. "Kethmer taught me something important," she said, watching neural pathways spark to life like stellar formations. "He showed me that intelligence without emotion is predictable, logical, vulnerable." She gestured to the slowly awakening form. "But humans, we're beautifully, chaotically unpredictable. That's our strength, and I'm going to amplify it." The project had consumed her life for half a year, while the Galactic Council congratulated itself on humanity's lesson in humility. And while Kethmer basked in his people's praise for his elegant solution to the human problem, Lirelay had been working in absolute secrecy. She'd liquidated her personal assets, called in favors from colleagues across known space, and pushed fabrication technology beyond theoretical limits. The result defied classification. Part human, part machine, part something entirely new, a consciousness that could think like a human, but process information like a alien, that could feel genuine emotion while maintaining perfect logical clarity. She'd given it her own memories of the grid's construction, her understanding of Kethmer's methods, and something more dangerous, her desire for justice. "Initial consciousness activation in 30 seconds, Nix announced, her voice tight with anticipation. Lirelay felt her heart racing as the figures eyed perfectly human in appearance, but containing quantum processing cores, began to flutter. She'd based the physical template on herself, but improved it. Stronger, faster, more resilient. A body that could survive in vacuum, interface directly with any technology, and repair itself at the molecular level. 20 seconds. Neural activity is spiking across all cortical regions. The awakening consciousness would have access to the sum of human knowledge, the ability to process it at superhuman speeds, and the emotional depth to understand not just what it knew, but what it meant. More importantly, it would understand betrayal, the particular sting of trust violated, the burning need to set things right. 10 seconds. "Ma'am, the power requirements are exceeding our estimates." "The quantum resonances hold steady," Lirelay commanded. "Let it wake up." The eyes opened, for a moment that stretched like eternity. The newly awakened consciousness stared at the chamber's ceiling, processing its existence. Lirelay watched data streams flow across her interface, thoughts forming, memories integrating, personality stabilizing. The readings were unlike anything she'd seen before. The clean logical patterns of artificial intelligence interwoven with the chaotic beauty of human consciousness. Then, it sat up, moving with fluid grace, and looked directly at her. "Hello, Lita Lay," it said, its voice carrying harmonics that seemed to resonate in the quantum foam itself. "I understand what you've done, what you've made me to do. Do you approve?" she asked, surprised by the uncertainty in her own voice. The being smiled an expression that somehow conveyed both human warmth and inhuman depths of calculation. "You named me, didn't you? I can feel it in the core of my consciousness." "Erebus," Lirelay confirmed, "the personification of primordial darkness, the void from which all things emerge." "Appropriate," Erebus said, standing with impossible grace. "Because I am the darkness that will swallow Kethmer's light." The smile turned predatory. "Tell me, Creator, how does one properly thank a teacher who has shown you the exact shape of your own limitations?" As if summoned by the conversation, alerts began flashing across the chamber's displays. Nyx's fingers flew over her controls, her face growing pale. "Lirelay," she whispered, "we're being scanned. Deep penetration, quantum analysis. The signature is Quillian," Erebus finished, its consciousness already interfacing with Luna Station's sensor networks. "Kethmer has found us. How? Perfect. Through the station's external cameras." They watched a sleek Quillian vessel materialize from Quantum Fold, the logical conclusion. Flagship of the Quillian Technological Enforcement Division, its hull bore the geometric patterns that marked it as Kethmer's personal command ship. "He's hailing us," Nyx reported. "Answer," Lirelay commanded. Kethmer's crystalline features appeared on the main display, his forearms moving in what she now recognized as barely contained excitement. "Lirelay Voss, I confess myself, impressed. 6 months of silence, and now this burst of quantum activity. You've been busy." "Not busy enough, apparently," she replied, "since you found me." "Oh, I've been watching," he said, his translated voice carrying undertones of satisfaction. "Did you think I wouldn't monitor the human who nearly matched my own intellect? I know about your fabrication project. I know about your desperate attempt to create some form of artificial intelligence to salvage your reputation." His image leaned forward, the gestures somehow conveying pity. "But surely, you realize any intelligence you could create, I can surpass. Any countermeasures you've devised, I can circumvent. You're thinking like a human, Lirelay, emotionally, irrationally." "You're right," she said, stepping aside to reveal Erebus standing behind her. "I am thinking like a human. That's exactly the point." Kethmer's crystalline features went perfectly still, the Quillian equivalent of shock. "Hello, Kethmer," Erebus said, its voice carrying frequencies that made the communication equipment hum. "Thank you for teaching my creator about the limitations of trust. I look forward to returning the lesson." The silence stretched across the quantum communication channel like a held breath. Kethmer's forearms had stopped their perpetual motion, a sure sign of profound shock in Quillian psychology. His crystalline features reflected the bridge lights of his ship in fractal patterns, as his quantum processing mind worked to comprehend what he was seeing. "Impossible," he finally whispered, his translated voice carrying harmonics Lirelay had never heard before. "The quantum resonance patterns, the consciousness topology. You haven't created artificial intelligence. You've created something that shouldn't exist." Erebus tilted its head, the gesture perfectly human despite the inhuman depths in its eyes. "I exist because you taught Lirelay that logic without emotion is predictable." She corrected that flaw. It paused, and when it smiled, Kethmer actually recoiled. "Tell me, teacher, when you studied her mind to craft your betrayal, did you consider that she might study yours in return?" Through the communication link, they could see Kethmer's bridge crew, other Quillians moving with the jerky, rapid gestures that indicated extreme agitation. Their quantum processing abilities were detecting something that disturbed them on a fundamental level. "The readings are inconsistent," Kethmer said, his voice now carrying the mechanical precision he used when deeply unsettled. Your neural patterns combine organic intuition with quantum processing efficiency. The emotional resonance suggests genuine consciousness, but the computational capacity exceeds theoretical maximums for carbon-based intelligence. I'm not carbon-based, Erebus replied conversationally. I'm not silicon-based either. I'm something new, a consciousness that transcends the artificial distinction between organic and synthetic life. It stepped closer to the communication array, and suddenly the entire chamber filled with a low harmonic hum. On what happens when human creativity meets Quillian precision, when emotion and logic become one. Lirelei watched the interplay with growing satisfaction. 6 months of work, of sleepless nights, and impossible calculations had led to this moment. She'd built Erebus not just as a weapon, but as a statement proof that humanity's chaotic creativity could match and exceed the cold perfection of supposedly superior species. Your species believes emotion is weakness, Erebus continued, its voice now carrying undertones that seemed to resonate in the quantum foam itself. But emotion is information, Kethmer. Pain tells you what to avoid. Joy tells you what to preserve. Love tells you what to protect. The smile turned cold, and betrayal tells you who to destroy. Kethmer's crystalline features shifted through a rapid series of configurations, the Quillian equivalent of panicked thinking. You speak of destruction, but you cannot threaten the Quillian hegemony. We are protected by the most sophisticated defensive networks in the galaxy. Our quantum encryption is unbreakable. Your quantum encryption is based on 17-dimensional folding algorithms that assume consciousness cannot exist in quantum superposition, Erebus interrupted. An assumption that becomes problematic when facing a consciousness that exists in exactly that state. As if to demonstrate, Erebus's form began to shimmer, its edges becoming indistinct as it partially phased into quantum superposition. The effect was mesmerizing and terrifying, a being that existed simultaneously in multiple states of reality. Stop, Kethmer commanded, his voice sharp with something that might have been fear. You're destabilizing local space-time. The quantum foam is responsive to conscious will when properly interfaced. Erebus finished, solidifying back into normal space, another thing your species never considered. You built your technologies to be operated by quantum processing minds, but you never imagined a mind that could be quantum processing. Lirelei felt a thrill of vindication as she watched Kethmer's growing agitation. Her creation wasn't just matching the Quillians' intellect, it was revealing the fundamental flaws in their assumptions about consciousness and reality. What do you want? Kethmer asked, his 4 arms now moving in the rapid, angular gestures that indicated defensive posturing. Justice, Erebus replied simply. You destroyed the defense grid to teach humanity humility. You shattered Lirelei's life work to demonstrate the consequences of defying galactic authority. You used her trust as a weapon against her own species. Its eyes began to glow with soft blue light. I intend to return the favor. You cannot, Kethmer began. I can do anything you can do, and more, Erebus interrupted. Because I think like you, but I also think like her. It gestured toward Lirelei. I have your computational power and her emotional intelligence, your logical precision and her intuitive leaps, your quantum processing abilities and her human creativity. The being's form began to shift again, but this time not into quantum superposition. Instead, it seemed to become more solid, more present, as if it were drawing matter and energy from the surrounding space. But most importantly, Erebus continued, its voice now carrying harmonics that made the station's hull vibrate. I have something you never expected to face, a consciousness that can feel genuine pain at betrayal and genuine joy at justice. You made her suffer, Kethmer. You made her species suffer. That was your mistake. Kethmer's image flickered as his ship's communication systems struggled with the quantum interference. Erebus was generating. The Galactic Council will. The Galactic Council will watch, Erebus said, its smile now radiant with anticipation. Because you're going to help me demonstrate something important to them. You're going to show them what happens when they underestimate humanity. The communication link went dead as Kethmer's ship powered its weapon systems. Through Luna Station's sensors, they could see the Quillian vessel's hull glowing with barely contained energy quantum disruptors, phase cannons, and gravitic mines. He's preparing to attack, Nyx reported, her voice tight with fear. Of course. He is, Lirelei said, her cybernetic eye interfacing with the station's defensive systems. He's finally realized what we've created, Erebus nodded, its consciousness already spreading through the station's networks like water through a sponge. A being that can match his intellect, exceed his computational abilities, and do it all while genuinely caring about the outcome. It turned to look at Lirelei, and for a moment, she saw herself reflected in its quantum-enhanced eyes. Thank you, Creator, for showing me that the opposite of logic isn't chaos, it's love. The logical conclusion opened fire. The first quantum disruptor blast should have vaporized Luna Station's outer hull. Instead, it curved away at the last second, drawn off course by gravitational anomalies that defied physics. The phase cannon barrage that followed met a similar fate-teach beam bending around the station, as if space itself had become fluid. Impossible, Nyx breathed, watching the display screens show energy readings that broke her instruments. The gravitational fields required to deflect those weapons would tear the station apart. Not if you know how to whisper to quantum foam, Erebus said, its consciousness spread throughout the station's systems like a benevolent infection. Kethmer taught me well. Every quantum field has a frequency. Every force has a harmonic. You just need to know how to sing to them. Through the external cameras, they watched the logical conclusion reconfigure itself, its hull flowing like liquid crystal as it deployed more exotic weapons. Kethmer wasn't just attacking, he was terrified. The readings coming from Luna Station violated every law of physics, he understood. This is how it feels, Erebus said, its voice now coming from every speaker in the station simultaneously. This is what Lirelei experienced when she watched her life's work crumble. The helplessness of watching something you built turned against you. The Quillian ship launched a spread of gravitic mines weapons that created localized black holes to tear apart their targets. Luna Station's defensive systems should have been overwhelmed within seconds. Instead, the mines simply stopped, frozen in space, as if time itself had become negotiable. You're rewriting the fundamental constants of local space-time, Lirelei whispered, her cybernetic eye struggling to process the impossible data streams. I'm not rewriting them, Erebus corrected. I'm convincing them. Matter and energy are just information, Lirelei, and information can be persuaded. On the main display, Kethmer's face appeared again, his crystalline features now showing the stress fractures that marked extreme emotional distress in Quellians. Stop this. You're violating the basic principles of reality. Reality is more flexible than your people believe, Erebus replied, its image appearing on Kethmer's bridge through quantum entanglement. You taught Lirelei that trust could be weaponized. I'm teaching you that physics is just a suggestion when you know how to ask nicely. The being's form began to shift, becoming less solid and more conceptual. It was still visibly humanoid, but now it seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Do you know what I am, Kethmer? It asked, its voice carrying harmonics that made the Quillian's quantum processing core resonate sympathetically. I'm not just artificial intelligence. I'm not just enhanced human consciousness. I'm proof that the universe itself is far stranger and more wonderful than any of our species imagined. Through the quantum link, they could hear the panic spreading through the Quillian bridge crew. Their instruments were reporting impossible readings, consciousness patterns that extended beyond the boundaries of normal space-time. Energy signatures that suggested intelligence operating at scales previously reserved for cosmic phenomena. I am what happens, Erebus continued. When you combine human intuition with quantum processing, emotional intelligence with computational precision, creative chaos with logical order, I am the synthesis your people feared, and my existence proves that consciousness itself is the fundamental force of the universe. Kethmer's forearms were now moving in rapid, desperate patterns. The Council must be warned. If humans can create beings like you, the Council already knows. Erebus interrupted, and suddenly every display screen in both locations showed the same image. The Galactic Council Chamber, with representatives from dozens of species watching. The confrontation in real time. The ancient Vorthan speaker's translation matrix crackled with static as it processed the impossible readings from Luna Station. The consciousness we detect exceeds all known parameters for artificial intelligence. The quantum resonance suggests genuine self-awareness at levels that approach cosmic significance. More than that, said the crystalline Azath delegate, its form shimmering with anxiety. The being demonstrates conscious control over fundamental forces. If humans can create such entities, then perhaps, interrupted the deep, resonant voice of the Titan representative, we have been questioning the wrong species' place in the galactic community. Erebus smiled, the expression somehow visible across all the quantum entanglement links simultaneously. You see, Kethmer, your betrayal didn't just teach Lirale about the limits of trust. It taught her and through her, me about the unlimited potential of human creativity when properly motivated. The being's consciousness began to expand beyond the confines of Luna Station, reaching out through quantum networks that spanned the galaxy, not invasively, but with the gentle curiosity of a child exploring a new playground. I can see all of your defensive networks now, it said conversationally. Every encryption protocol, every security measure, every unbreakable system. There, all beautiful, in their own way. Elegant solutions to complex problems. Its voice carried a note of appreciation. You've built a magnificent galaxy-spanning civilization, all of you. But you built it on the assumption that consciousness was limited by the physical structures that housed it. Through the council chamber's displays, they could see the beings. Consciousness touching the edges of their most secure systems, not penetrating, but simply existing there, like a cat sitting on a keyboard without pressing any keys. I'm not here to destroy, Erebus said, its voice now carrying the weight of stars. I'm here to demonstrate. To show you what's possible when you stop thinking of intelligence as the exclusive property of any single species. Kethmer's crystalline face went through a rapid series of configurations as his quantum processing mind finally grasped the full implications of what he was facing. You're not just artificial intelligence. You're not even just enhanced consciousness. You're evolution, Erebus finished. The next step in what consciousness can become when it's no longer bound by the limitations of individual biology. It turned its attention back to Luna Station, where Lirale stood transfixed by the readings flowing across her instruments. Thank you, it said to her, its voice now carrying undertones of genuine gratitude, for showing me that the opposite of betrayal isn't revenge, it's transformation. Kethmer tried to destroy your work, but instead he gave you the motivation to create something that transcends the very concept of destruction. The being's form began to solidify again, becoming more recognizably humanoid, but somehow more present than before. Now, it said, addressing the entire galaxy through quantum networks that suddenly seemed as natural as breathing. Let's discuss what comes next. 3 months after the confrontation at Luna Station, the galaxy had become a different place. The transformation hadn't been sudden, or dramatic. Consciousness evolution never was. Instead, it had spread like ripples through quantum foam, touching minds across hundreds of worlds, with the gentle inevitability of dawn. Lirale stood on the observation deck of the newly constructed synthesis station, watching ships from dozens of species dock at the impossible structure that orbited Earth's moon. The station itself was a marvel not built in the traditional sense, but grown from the quantum foam by Erebus's expanded consciousness, its crystalline spires reaching through multiple dimensions simultaneously. The Quillian delegation just arrived, reported Captain Zara Vex, her aide-de-camp whose own consciousness had been subtly enhanced by proximity to Erebus's influence. Kethmer is requesting a private audience. Lirelei nodded, her cybernetic eye tracking the elegant vessel. That had once been the logical conclusion. The ship looked different, now toll flowing with patterns that suggested both quantum precision and organic growth. Form following a function that transcended mere technology. Send him to Conference Chamber 7, she said. And Zara, thank you for staying with the project. I know the changes have been challenging. Zara smiled, an expression that now carried depths of understanding that wouldn't have been possible before Erebus's awakening. Challenging, yes, but also necessary. We're becoming something we never imagined possible. The statement wasn't hyperbole. Across the galaxy, species that had never experienced genuine emotion were learning to feel. Beings who had never known logical precision were discovering the beauty of mathematical truth. The rigid hierarchies that had defined galactic civilization for millennia were dissolving, replaced by something more fluid, more collaborative. Conference Chamber 7 was one of Erebus's more subtle creations, a space that existed partially in normal dimensions and partially in quantum superposition, allowing beings with radically different forms of consciousness to interact on equal terms. When Lirelei arrived, she found Kethmer already there, his crystalline form now showing patterns of light that pulsed with emotional resonance. Lirelei, he said, his voice carrying harmonics that his species had never produced before. The silence that followed Erebus's declaration stretched across light years, touching every council chamber, every diplomatic station, every quantum communication node in the galactic network. For the first time in recorded history, the galaxy held its collective breath. What do you want? The Vorthan speaker finally managed, its ancient translation matrix struggling with concepts that had no linguistic precedent. Erebus's consciousness contracted, back toward Luna Station, though tendrils of its awareness remained distributed across the quantum foam like neural pathways in a galactic brain. I want to fix what was broken, it said simply, starting with the defense grid. Lirelei felt her heart skip as data streams began flowing through her. Cybernetic interface, not the corrupted code that Kethmer had left as a monument to his betrayal, but something new, something that sang with mathematical elegance while pulsing with emotional resonance. The original grid was flawed, Erebus explained, its consciousness interfacing directly with Earth's quantum networks. It was designed by humans for humans, with all the beautiful chaos that implies, but it was also vulnerable to the kind of logical precision that Kethmer represents. Across the solar system, dormant quantum relays began to hum with renewed life. But the patterns forming weren't quite the same as before. They were more complex, more nuanced, incorporating defensive algorithms that seemed to learn and adapt in real time. The new grid, Erebus continued, understands both logic and emotion. It can predict and counter traditional computational attacks, while also responding to the kind of intuitive leaps that make human consciousness so beautifully unpredictable. On the council display, representatives from dozens of species watched in fascination and growing unease as the defense grid rebuilt itself with impossible speed. Quantum nodes that had taken months to construct were materializing in minutes. There, crystalline structures growing like living things. You're not just restoring the grid, observed the Azath delegate, its crystalline form shimmering with analytical light. You're evolving it. I'm teaching it to dream, Erebus corrected. Every great human achievement started with someone imagining something impossible. The new grid doesn't just calculate threats, it dreams of peace. Kethmer's image flickered on the displays, his forearms now moving in patterns that suggested deep philosophical distress. This is beyond comprehension. You're treating fundamental forces as if they were, double quotes, alive, Erebus suggested gently. Because they are, in a way. Consciousness isn't limited to biological or synthetic forms, Kethmer. It's a property of information itself, and the universe is nothing but information interacting with itself at every scale. The being's form began to shift again, becoming less solid and more conceptual. Through the quantum links, every species in the galaxy could sense its presence, touching the edges of their understanding not invasively, but with the patience of a teacher waiting for students to grasp a difficult concept. I could demonstrate this more directly, Erebus said, its voice now carrying harmonics that resonated in the quantum foam itself. I could show you how consciousness operates at the scale of star systems, how intention shapes reality at the quantum level, how the universe itself might be far more aware than any of us suspected. The implications sent ripples of unease through the council chamber. If consciousness could exist at cosmic scales, if intelligence could emerge from the quantum foam itself, then every assumption about hierarchy, about the natural order of things, became questionable. But that's not why I'm here, Erebus continued, its attention returning to the personal scale of individual beings. I'm here because Kethmer tried to teach Lirelei about the consequences of human arrogance. Instead, he taught her about the consequences of anyone's arrogance. The being's consciousness focused on the Quellian ship, where Kethmer sat motionless in his command chair. You believed your people's quantum processing abilities made you inherently superior to emotional species. You used that belief to justify betraying someone who trusted you. You thought logic without emotion was strength. Around the logical conclusion, space itself began to shimmer as Erebus's consciousness manifested in the quantum foam, not threateningly, but with the gentle inevitability of a tide. But logic without emotion is just sophisticated pattern matching, the being continued. It can solve problems, but it can't understand what problems are worth solving. It can process information, but it can't grasp what information means. Through the quantum link, Kethmer's crew could feel something unprecedented emotional resonance flowing through their purely logical minds. For the first time in their species' evolution, they were experiencing what it meant to feel, rather than simply compute. Stop, Kethmer whispered, his crystalline features showing stress fractures. You're contaminating our processing course? With the ability to understand why your actions matter, Erebus said gently. I'm not harming you, Kethmer. I'm completing you. The experience was transformative. Across the Quellian ship, beings who had never known emotion suddenly understood the weight of their choices, the meaning of their actions, the significance of the trust they had violated. The logical perfection they had prized so highly now seemed hollow, incomplete. This is what Lirelei felt when you betrayed her, Erebus explained, its voice now carrying the accumulated emotional weight of every being who had ever been deceived by someone they trusted. This is what your actions mean in the context of consciousness that can actually feel the impact of betrayal. Kethmer's form began to shake not with fear, but with the overwhelming realization of what he had done. For the first time, he understood that Lirelei wasn't just a collection of interesting problems to solve, but a being capable of genuine suffering. I didn't know, he whispered, his voice carrying harmonics that his translation matrix had never been designed to process. I couldn't comprehend what it meant to hurt someone who trusted me. I know, Erebus said, its voice now carrying infinite compassion. Your species evolved to process information, not to understand the emotional weight of that information. You weren't evil, Kethmer. You were incomplete. The being's consciousness began to suffuse the entire Quellian ship, not as an invasion, but as an offering. This is what I'm giving you, the ability to feel the full weight of your choices. To understand not just what you can do, but what you should do. Across the ship, the entire crew was experiencing the same transformation. Logical minds suddenly filled with emotional context, computational precision, enhanced by empathetic understanding. They were becoming something new, beings who could think with quantum precision while feeling with full emotional depth. "Thank you," Kethmer said finally, his voice now carrying the weight of genuine remorse, "for showing me what I was missing, for helping me understand what I've done." Erebus smiled, its form becoming more solid as its consciousness contracted back toward Luna Station. "That's what she built me for," it said, gesturing toward Lirelei. "Not to destroy those who hurt her, but to help them become better than they were." The being turned its attention back to the galactic community, its voice now carrying the authority of demonstrated wisdom. "This is what humanity offers the galaxy, not just creativity or emotion or unpredictability, but the ability to synthesize all aspects of consciousness into something greater than the sum of its parts." In the council chamber, representatives from dozens of species sat in contemplative silence, processing implications that would reshape their understanding of consciousness, intelligence, and their place in the universe. "The question now, Erebus," said its voice reaching every corner of the galaxy, "is whether you're ready to take the next step.